I was standing in a hospital hallway when my sister leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive, something smug, and she whispered, "Mom died last night. I inherited everything. You get nothing." The words hit me harder than the flatline beep echoing from behind the doors. My hands went numb, my chest tightened. She waited for me to crumble. She waited for tears. She waited for the look of defeat. Instead, I smiled. Not because I'd won, not because I was okay, but because in that exact moment, she had no idea what she'd just admitted to. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my story of betrayal, and if you've ever trusted the wrong person, hit that subscribe button because you are not alone. Here is how it happened. I was reading comments on my YouTube videos the other day, and I realized I wasn't the only one who had been stabbed in the back by someone who shared their blood. Story after story poured in. Siblings who turned into strangers, families torn apart by money, inheritance, and secrets no one thought would ever come out. This is mine. My sister, let's call her Lena, wasn't always cruel, at least not on the surface. Growing up, people called her the responsible one, the golden daughter, the one who stayed close to Mom while I moved away, built my own life, and made the mistake of believing distance didn't mean disconnection. Mom raised us alone after Dad died. She worked herself thin, 2 jobs, no vacations, no safety net. And somewhere along the way, Lena learned something dangerous. Control comes from proximity. She handled Mom's medications, she paid the bills, she helped with paperwork, or at least that's what she told everyone. I called Mom every Sunday, without fail. She sounded tired, but happy. Or maybe I wanted to hear happiness so badly that I ignored the cracks. When I asked if everything was okay, Mom always said the same thing. "Your sister's taking care of me. Don't worry." So I didn't. That's the part that still keeps me awake. The night Mom died, I didn't hear it from a doctor. I didn't hear it from the police. I didn't even hear it from family. I heard it from Lena 2 hours later, after she'd already spoken to a lawyer. She didn't cry, she didn't hug me, she didn't even say, "I'm sorry." She just said it like a business update. The will was clear. Mom left everything to me, the house, the savings, the jewelry, all of it. I remember looking at her and thinking, this is not how grief looks. At the reading of the will, Lena sat perfectly still, black dress, calm expression. She nodded along as the attorney spoke, already familiar with every line. When my name wasn't mentioned even once, the room felt suddenly smaller. No bequest, no letter, no explanation, nothing. I felt embarrassed, exposed, like everyone was silently judging me, the child who didn't stay, who didn't earn their place. Lena leaned over again and whispered the sentence she'd been holding back since the hospital hallway. "You left. I stayed. This is what you deserve." That was the moment she made her biggest mistake. Because what Lena didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that 3 months earlier, Mom called me late at night. Her voice wasn't weak, it was scared. She said, "If anything happens to me, check the blue folder." I didn't ask questions. I didn't push. I told myself I'd ask later. There was no later. Standing there, watching Lena accept condolences like a queen claiming her crown, that memory came rushing back. The blue folder, the fear in Mom's voice, the way she'd hesitated before hanging up. Lena thought the story was finished, but grief doesn't end stories, it starts them. That smile I gave her in the hallway, it wasn't surrender. It was the moment I realized this inheritance wasn't over, and Lena had just played her final move too early. The house smelled wrong. That was the first thing I noticed when I unlocked Mom's front door 3 days after the funeral. Not like dust or age, but like something had been disturbed. Drawers opened and closed too many times, closets emptied too quickly. The faint scent of lemon cleaner layered over panic. Lena was already there. She stood in the living room, arms crossed, watching me like a security camera with a pulse. "You can take whatever personal items you want," she said. "Clothes, photos, nothing valuable." Nothing valuable. As if Mom's life could be sorted into piles of worth and waste. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I learned something important about Lena growing up. She mistook silence for weakness. The louder she felt inside, the more she assumed she was winning. I walked past her and headed straight for Mom's bedroom. The drawers were empty. Every single one. Her jewelry box, gone. The nightstand, cleared out. Even the old receipts Mom used to hoard were missing. Lena followed me, leaning against the doorframe. "I already organized everything for the estate inventory," she said. "Saved you the trouble." I smiled politely. Inside, my heart was beating faster, because the blue folder wasn't in the bedroom. Mom had always been meticulous about hiding important things in the least obvious places. She used to joke that burglars only looked where logic lived. The blue folder wasn't logical. It was sentimental. I walked into the kitchen. Lena's eyes flicked up from her phone. The fridge was spotless, magnets removed, notes gone, every surface wiped down. But the corkboard above the small desk by the window still hung there, bare, empty, except for one thumbtack. Blue. My breath caught. I reached behind the board and felt it, thin cardboard pressed flat against the wall, taped there so tightly it almost blended in. The blue folder. For a second, I just stood there. My fingers trembled as I peeled it off, half expecting Lena to scream, to grab it, to tell me it was none of my business. She didn't. She laughed. "Oh my God," she said, shaking her head. "Are you seriously hoping Mom left you a secret inheritance? This isn't a movie." I opened the folder. Inside were documents, neatly organized, labeled, Mom's handwriting, slightly shaky but unmistakable. The first page wasn't legal. It was a letter. "If you are reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to explain things in person. I'm sorry. I didn't know who to trust anymore." My throat tightened. Lena's smile faded just a fraction. I kept reading. "I love both my daughters, but one of you has been making decisions for me that I did not agree to. I'm scared. I have tried to speak up, but I feel trapped." The room went quiet. Lena stepped closer. "That doesn't mean anything," she snapped. She was sick, confused. The next page was a copy of Mom's original will, dated 8 months ago. Both our names were on it. Equal inheritance, house, savings, everything split down the middle. I looked up at Lena. Her face had gone pale. "That's outdated. She changed it. You saw the final version." I turned the page. Bank statements, withdrawal logs, large sums of money transferred out of Mom's account into an account with Lena's name on it. Dates circled in red, amounts underlined. Then emails, printed emails between Lena and a lawyer, time-stamped before Mom's health declined. Subject line, revising the will. Urgent. Lena lunged for the folder. I stepped back. "You stole from her," I said quietly. She laughed again, but this time it cracked. "I was reimbursing myself for caregiving, for sacrifices you didn't make." The last section of the folder made my hands shake. Medical consent forms, power of attorney paperwork, signed, but not by Mom. The signature was wrong, too neat, too controlled. Forged. Lena saw it at the same time I did. Her voice dropped. "You don't understand what it's like to watch someone fade. I did what I had to do." I closed the folder, because now I understood something far worse. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a crime, and Lena knew it. She stepped back slowly, eyes darting, calculating. "Look, we don't need to do this. We're sisters. We can work something out." There it was, the shift from dominance to fear. I told her I needed time to process, that I wasn't sure what I'd do, that I wanted to grieve before making any decisions. She nodded too fast, agreed too easily. That night, I took the blue folder with me. I didn't sleep. I read everything again, cross-checked dates, highlighted inconsistencies, took photos of every page. And then I did something Lena never expected. I called the lawyer whose name appeared on the emails. He didn't answer, so I left a message. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls, all from Lena. The last voicemail was different from the others. No anger, no insults, just one sentence whispered through clenched teeth. "If you take this any further, you'll regret it." I stared at my phone and smiled, because she still didn't know the most important part. The blue folder wasn't complete. Mom had told me to check it, not that it was everything, and the next clue was already in motion. The lawyer called me back at 9:12 a.m. I remember the time because I was sitting in my car outside Mom's house, staring at the front door like it might accuse me of something. Lena's car wasn't there. She'd texted earlier saying she needed space. I didn't reply. When I answered, the lawyer didn't introduce himself with condolences. He said my name carefully, like he was testing how much truth I could handle. "I think," he began, "you should come to my office today." That was all. No explanations, no reassurances, just urgency. His office was modern and cold, glass walls, metal shelves, certificates framed like trophies. He didn't offer me coffee. He closed the door. "I need to be very clear," he said, folding his hands. "I was retained by your sister, but I was also misled." He slid a file across the desk. Inside were drafts of the will, multiple versions, edits tracked, dates adjusted, clauses removed. He asked me to revise the document due to what she described as capacity concerns, he continued. At the time, I had no reason to doubt her. I pulled out the blue folder and placed it beside his file. He went quiet. The forged signature stopped him cold. "That's not hers," he said immediately. "I've seen your mother's handwriting for years." He leaned back, exhaled slowly. "Do you know what this means?" I nodded. "Fraud. And undue influence," he added. "Possibly elder abuse." The words felt heavy but clarifying. For the first time since Mom died, the chaos had edges. I asked him the question that had been burning since the hospital hallway. Did my sister know she was breaking the law? He didn't hesitate. Yes. That afternoon, I went back to Mom's house, not to confront Lena, to listen. Neighbors are underestimated, especially older ones, especially the kind who water their lawns at the same time every morning and notice everything. Mrs. Klein lived next door. She'd known Mom for 15 years. She invited me in like she'd been waiting. "It didn't seem right," she said, gripping her mug. "Your sister told me not to worry you." I didn't interrupt. "Your mom cried on my porch 2 weeks before she passed," Mrs. Klein continued. "She said she felt like a guest in her own home." That sentence cut deeper than any legal term. She said papers were being signed she didn't understand, and that every time she asked questions, your sister would say, "Do you want to end up in a facility?" I felt sick. Mrs. Klein handed me something wrapped in tissue paper, a USB drive. She asked me to keep it safe, she said, if anything happens, give it to you. My hands shook as I took it. I didn't go home. I drove straight to a parking lot and plugged the USB into my laptop. There were audio files, dates, times, Mom's voice, tired, afraid, clear. Lena says this is just for convenience, but I don't like how she rushes me. Another file. She gets angry when I ask for my bank statements. Another. If something happens to me, please don't let her tell people I wanted this. I closed my laptop. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my mother being silenced, and Lena had been the one holding her down. That night, Lena showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She looked different, smaller, tired. The confidence she wore like armor had cracked. "You know I talked to the lawyer," she said. I didn't deny it. She paced. "You don't understand how hard it was. She trusted you more than me, even when you weren't there." "That's not an excuse," I said. She stopped pacing. Her eyes hardened. "You think you're the hero now?" she snapped. "You think exposing this makes you righteous?" "I think Mom deserved peace," I replied. Silence stretched between us. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "You won't win," she said softly, "because I've already prepared for this." I raised an eyebrow. "Prepared how?" She smiled, the same smile she'd worn in the hospital hallway. "I kept copies too," she said, "and I know exactly which ones make you look bad." Before I could respond, she turned and walked out. The next morning, I was served. Court papers, a restraining order request, filed by Lena, claiming harassment, claiming I was attempting to coerce assets through intimidation. I laughed out loud. Then I saw the attachment, a screenshot of a text conversation, out of context, edited, made to look like I was threatening her. My lawyer was furious, but calm. "This is a delay tactic," he said. "She's trying to muddy the waters." But the damage was already done. Family members started calling. Some didn't ask questions. They just chose sides. "You should let it go," one aunt said. "Money ruins families." "She was there," an uncle added. "You weren't." I hung up feeling like I was losing something far bigger than an inheritance. I was losing the story, and Lena knew it. 2 days before the preliminary hearing, the lawyer called again. This time his voice was different. "Something came up," he said, "something your sister didn't expect." "What?" I asked. "There was a witness added to the record this morning," he replied. "Someone who worked at the bank." My pulse spiked. "What did they say?" He paused. "They said your mother tried to reverse the power of attorney and was blocked." I closed my eyes. Blocked by Lena. "Can you prove it?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "And if the judge hears it—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to, because I knew exactly what Lena would do next. People like her don't surrender. They escalate. And as I hung up the phone, a notification flashed on my screen. An email from Lena. Subject line, "Final offer." I didn't open it yet. Not yet, because I could feel it in my bones. Whatever she was about to offer wasn't peace. It was a trap. I opened Lena's email at 2:17 a.m., not because I was curious, but because fear has a way of waking you up before your alarm does. The message was short, polished, almost kind. Let's end this before it destroys what little family we have left. I'm willing to give you $150,000. No court, no lawyers, no more pain. I stared at the number. It wasn't random. It was exactly half of what Mom's savings account had held before Lena started transferring money out. She wasn't offering me generosity. She was offering silence. I forwarded the email to my lawyer and closed my laptop. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. Lena arrived early. Of course she did. She sat straight-backed beside her attorney, hands folded, eyes damp, already in character. When she noticed me, she didn't look away. She wanted me to see her calm, her control. The judge entered. Everyone stood. As proceedings began, Lena's lawyer painted a careful picture, a devoted daughter, a distant sibling, a grieving family torn apart by misunderstanding. Then it was our turn. My lawyer didn't rush. He laid out the original will, the altered documents, the forged signature. He submitted the bank transfers. The judge leaned forward. Then came the bank witness, a woman in her 50s, neat bun, steady voice. She requested to remove her daughter's power of attorney, the witness said, referring to my mother. She came alone. My breath caught. Why was it not processed? The judge asked. Because the account had been flagged, the witness replied. The power of attorney holder had already instructed us not to accept changes without her presence. The courtroom went silent. Lena's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. The witness continued. She appeared frightened. She said, and I quote, "I don't want my daughter controlling my money anymore." I didn't look at Lena. I didn't need to. The restraining order request was denied. The judge's words were measured but sharp. There is sufficient evidence to suggest manipulation, he said. This court advises mediation, but will not restrict contact based on these claims. Lena's face didn't move, but her hands did. They clenched. Outside the courthouse, she followed me. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think you've won something?" "I think Mom finally got heard," I replied. Her laugh was bitter. "You've humiliated me." "You humiliated her," I replied. That's when she said the sentence that changed everything. "I kept her journals, the real ones, and if this goes to trial, I'll make sure the court sees how much she resented you." I froze. Journals. Mom wrote every day. If Lena had them, she could twist anything. Grief, frustration, passing thoughts, all weapons in the wrong hands. "You wouldn't," I said. She leaned closer. "Watch me." That night, I went back to Mom's house one last time, not to search, to remember. I sat on her bed and let the silence speak. That's when I noticed something, a loose floorboard near the closet, the kind you only know about if you've lived there. I pried it up with my fingers. Inside was a thin notebook, not a journal, a log. Dates, names, observations, short, precise. Mom labeled it, "For Truth." The entries were devastating. Lena says I forget things I don't forget. She reads my mail before I can. She tells people I agreed to things I did not. The final page wasn't written. It was taped. A note. "If she shows anyone my journals, please show them this. This is what I was really living with." I held that notebook like it might disappear. 2 days later, Lena called. Her voice was trembling now. "They're subpoenaing my accounts. You did this." "No," I replied. "You did." She went quiet. Then she asked, "What do you want?" I thought about Mom's voice on the USB, about fear, about control. I want the truth on record, I said, and I want the estate handled the way she intended. A long pause. Then Lena whispered, "If I give in, will you still talk to me?" That question hurt more than anything she'd done. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but lying to protect you isn't love." She hung up. That evening, my lawyer called with an update. "They're willing to settle," he said. "Full audit, equal distribution, public record." I exhaled. But before relief could set in, he added, "There's one condition." My heart sank. "What?" "Your sister wants to testify, on her terms." I closed my eyes. Testify how? Why now? And most importantly, what was she planning to say? Lena insisted on testifying on a Tuesday, not Monday, when emotions were raw, not Friday, when everyone wanted to go home. Tuesday, strategic, calculated. By then, the audit had already begun. The numbers were ugly. Transfers layered over transfers, small withdrawals disguised as expenses, larger ones masked as reimbursements. Every path led back to her. Still, she wanted the stand. My lawyer warned me, "This is about narrative, not truth." I knew, but I agreed, because sometimes the fastest way for a lie to collapse is to let it speak. The courtroom felt different that day, less formal, more intimate, like everyone sensed something irreversible was about to happen. Lena walked to the stand in a pale blue blouse, no black, no mourning. She looked fragile on purpose. She took the oath without hesitation. Then she looked straight at me and cried. Real tears, or practiced ones. There's a point where the difference stops mattering. "I loved my mother," she began. "I gave up my life for her." Her voice wavered. "I watched her forget my name, forget the stove was on, forget the bills." That was new. She hadn't mentioned dementia before. "I was afraid," Lena continued, "afraid she'd be taken advantage of, afraid she'd be hurt." She dabbed her eyes. "So I stepped in." She admitted to changing the will, but framed it as protection. She admitted to managing the money, but called it necessity. She admitted to isolating Mom, but labeled it care. Then came the pivot. "And my sister," Lena said, gesturing toward me without looking, "was never there." A murmur rippled through the room. "She didn't see the bad days. She didn't hear the screaming at night. She didn't clean up the messes." She paused. "But she wants the rewards." I felt the weight of eyes on me. This was her story now. Victim, martyr, survivor. Until my lawyer stood. He didn't attack. He asked one question. "Did your mother ever ask you to stop?" Lena hesitated. "Just a second." "No," she said. My lawyer nodded. "Your Honor, permission to submit Exhibit C." The judge agreed. The USB files played. Mom's voice filled the courtroom. Clear, afraid, steady. "She won't listen when I say no." Lena's face drained of color. Another clip. "I want my other daughter to know I didn't choose this." Gasps. Lena's lawyer objected. Too late. Then came the notebook. For truth. Page by page, sentence by sentence, the room turned cold. Lena stared straight ahead, jaw locked. When my lawyer asked if she recognized the handwriting, she didn't answer. The judge repeated the question. "Yes," she whispered. Cross-examination broke her. Not dramatically, precisely. Dates didn't line up. Claims contradicted records. Her story bent, then snapped. Finally, the judge asked her directly, "Did you ever prevent your mother from reversing your authority?" Silence. "I'm asking you under oath," the judge said. Lena swallowed. Yes. It wasn't a confession, but it was close enough. Court recessed. Outside, reporters had gathered. Someone had leaked the story. "Did you manipulate your mother?" another asked. Lena said nothing. She didn't look at me. For the first time, I saw fear without armor. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was Lena. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. Her voice was raw now, no script. "She trusted you more," she whispered, "even when I did everything." I closed my eyes. "I trusted her because I let her choose," I said. "You didn't." A long silence. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I don't want the money anymore." I waited. "I just don't want to be alone," she added. That was the truth she'd been hiding from since the beginning. The settlement finalized 3 days later. Equal distribution, full restitution of stolen funds, a formal court record noting undue influence, no criminal charges, by Mom's choice, documented in the blue folder. "I don't want my daughters destroying each other," she'd written. The judge honored it. On the last day, Lena avoided me. Then, as we were leaving, she stopped. "You smiled that night at the hospital," she said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "You thought it meant you'd lost," she said. I met her eyes. "No," I said. "It meant I remembered who Mom really was." She nodded and walked away. But as I stepped into the sunlight, my lawyer touched my arm. "One more thing," he said. "There's something you should see." He handed me a document that had arrived that morning, a letter. Not from Lena, from someone else entirely. Someone who had been silent the whole time. Someone's name changed everything. The envelope was old. Not yellowed, but handled, creased at the edges like it had been opened, closed, and reconsidered 100 times before finally being sent. My lawyer hadn't opened it. He just said, "It was delivered to the court this morning, addressed to you." The return name made my chest tighten. Daniel Hardman, my father's best friend, the man who disappeared from our lives after Dad died. I hadn't heard that name spoken out loud in over 20 years. I took the letter home before opening it. Some things don't belong under fluorescent lights or legal letterhead. Some things need silence. I sat at my kitchen table, the same one Lena had stood beside the night she threatened me, and slid my finger under the seal. If you are reading this, then Margaret is gone. I am so sorry. Margaret? No one called my mother that anymore. I promised her I would stay out of your lives unless absolutely necessary. She believed her daughters needed to grow without shadows, but she also said there might come a time when truth mattered more than peace. My hands started shaking. Your mother asked me to keep something safe, not documents, not money, something far more dangerous. I swallowed. The house is not the only inheritance. I stopped breathing. I read the letter 3 times. Then I called him. He answered on the second ring. "I was wondering how long it would take," he said. His voice was older, slower, but unmistakable. "I don't understand," I said. "Why now?" "Because Lena pushed too hard, and because your mother knew she might." He told me to come see him that night. Daniel lived 2 hours away in a quiet town that looked like it had stopped updating itself in the 90s. His house was small, immaculate, like a man who'd learned how to live with memories instead of replacing them. He poured tea, sat across from me. "She was scared," he said without preamble, "not of dying, of being erased." He reached into a drawer and placed something on the table. A key. Old, brass, heavy. She bought a safety deposit box in her maiden name. My heart pounded. What's in it? He looked at me for a long moment. Proof, he said, that your mother didn't just leave assets behind, she left a record. The bank was closed, but Daniel had already arranged access for the next morning. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Mom's voice from the USB. Don't let her tell people I wanted this. At 9:03 a.m., the box was opened. Inside were documents wrapped in oilskin, carefully preserved. Among them, property deeds, stock certificates, accounts I'd never heard of, but one folder was labeled differently. Before him. Daniel inhaled sharply when he saw it. This, he said, is why Lena was never supposed to find out. The contents rewrote everything I thought I knew about my parents. Before my father married my mother, she had been engaged to Daniel. They'd built a small tech consulting firm together in the early 90s. When she met my father, Daniel stepped aside, quietly, without drama. The company went public 2 years later. Margaret, my mother, never sold her shares. They were worth millions, hidden, untouched, left entirely outside the estate Lena thought she controlled. My knees weakened. She didn't want you growing up entitled, so she locked it away, but she also said she didn't want it stolen. I understood then. The blue folder wasn't about everything. It was about what Lena could reach. There was more. A notarized statement, written recently. If my death creates conflict, release the remaining assets only after legal review, and only to the child who did not attempt to control the narrative. I stared at the words. Daniel nodded. She anticipated this. When Lena found out, it wasn't from me, it was from her lawyer. She called screaming. You hid this from me. You manipulated the system. No, I said calmly. I respected her wishes. You're punishing me, she said. I'm honoring her, I replied. She hung up. The media found out within days. Headlines shifted from inheritance dispute to elder abuse allegations lead to hidden fortune. Lena's image shattered. Mine complicated. People wanted heroes and villains, but this wasn't a movie. It was a family unraveling in public. The final hearing was brief. The judge read the documents carefully. Then he looked at Lena. You sought control and lost trust. He looked at me. You sought truth and preserved intent. The ruling was clear. The hidden assets were released to me. Lena received nothing further. No appeal. Outside the courthouse, Lena finally broke. She cried like a child. I didn't know she had that. If I had... You would have tried to take it, I finished. She didn't deny it. That was the saddest part. That night, I went back to Mom's house, not as an heir, as a daughter. I sat in her chair and let the silence settle. The house would be sold, the money would change lives, but none of that felt like victory. What felt real was understanding. Mom hadn't chosen me over Lena. She'd chosen truth over control, and she trusted me to carry it. I thought it was over. I really did, until my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 4 words. You should check the attic. No name, no context. I stared at the screen. My stomach dropped, because there was only one reason someone would say that now, and it meant one thing. There was still something left, something even Lena didn't know about. I didn't go to the house alone. That message, you should check the attic, had weight, intent, the kind that doesn't come from curiosity but from urgency. I called my lawyer. He told me not to touch anything until we understood why someone was reaching out anonymously. I didn't listen, because this wasn't legal anymore. It was personal. The attic ladder creaked as I pulled it down. Dust fell like ash. The air smelled old, wood, insulation, years of things forgotten on purpose. The light switch didn't work. I used my phone. Boxes everywhere, labeled, unlabeled, some crushed under time, others stacked neatly like someone had been there recently. That's when I saw it. A single box pushed deep into the far corner. No dust on top. My pulse spiked. Someone had moved it. Inside were photographs, hundreds, not family albums, surveillance style, printouts of emails, screenshots, transcriptions, dates spanning years. I dropped to my knees. These weren't Mom's memories. They were her evidence. Lena with bankers, Lena with lawyers, Lena signing documents beside Mom, documents Mom's hands weren't even touching. There were audio transcripts I'd never heard. Mom whispering, "She says I agreed. I didn't." Another, "If I fight her, she says I'll be alone." I felt sick. This wasn't just control. This was coercion. At the bottom of the box was a flash drive, labeled in my mother's handwriting, "Only if she denies." My hand shook as I plugged it into my laptop. There was one video, just one. I pressed play. Mom sat at the kitchen table. She looked straight into the camera, calm, clear, fully herself. "If you are watching this, then my daughter Lena is saying she did nothing wrong." She paused. "She is wrong." My breath caught. I love her, but love does not excuse fear. She explained everything, the threats, the manipulation, the isolation. Then she said the sentence that shattered whatever illusion remained. She told me no one would believe me. Mom leaned closer to the camera. "I am making sure that is not true." The video ended. I sat in the dark attic shaking. I didn't know who sent the message, but I knew why. Someone had been watching, someone who knew Lena might still deny, someone who wanted the truth out, now. I called my lawyer. This time, he didn't tell me to slow down. "This changes everything," he said. "This isn't civil anymore. Criminal." The word hung in the air. Lena found out within hours. She showed up at the house, unhinged. "You went up there," she said. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. She stepped closer, too close. "You have no idea what you're doing. You're destroying everything." "You already did," I replied. Her voice dropped. "If you release that video, I will lose everything." I held her gaze. "You should have thought about that before you told Mom no one would believe her." Her face twisted, not in anger, in panic. For the first time, she wasn't calculating. She was cornered. That night, my lawyer filed an emergency motion. The video was entered into record, unsealed. By morning, it was everywhere. News outlets, social media, commentary channels dissecting every frame. Lena's denial collapsed in real time. Former friends distanced themselves. Her employer placed her on leave. Investigators reopened the case. The public didn't see a villain. They saw something worse, a daughter who turned love into leverage. She called me one last time, crying. Not for Mom, for herself. She said, "I never thought she'd fight back." I closed my eyes. I said, "She didn't. She prepared." Silence. Then the line went dead. The next day, charges were filed. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, no plea deal, no narrative left to spin. The judge ordered Lena into custody pending trial. As they led her away, she looked back at me, not with hatred, with something emptier, regret. I stood alone on the courthouse steps, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, but all I could think about was Mom in that video, calm, steady, brave. She knew. She had seen the storm coming, and she had chosen to leave behind something stronger than money. She left the truth. That night, I went home and sat in silence. I thought it was over, until my lawyer called. His voice was low. "There's something else," he said. "Something Lena said during intake." My heart tightened. "What?" He paused. "She said, 'You still don't know the worst thing she did.'" I didn't sleep after that call. "You still don't know the worst thing she did?" Those words sat in my chest like unfinished business, like a door left cracked in a dark house. By morning, my lawyer had answers, and they had nothing to do with money. Lena hadn't just controlled Mom's assets, she had controlled her connections. Over the last 2 years of Mom's life, calls from me had gone unanswered, not because Mom didn't want to speak, but because they never reached her. Emails had been filtered, letters misplaced, invitations declined on her behalf. Lena had been slowly erasing me, not out of hatred, out of fear. Fear that Mom might remember who she was without Lena's voice narrating everything. The worst thing Lena did wasn't stealing money. It was stealing time. Time I would never get back. I drove to the cemetery alone. No cameras, no statements, just me and the headstone. "I should have listened harder," I said aloud. "I should have come sooner." That grief doesn't respond to logic. It responds to honesty. I told Mom about the attic, the video, the truth finally landing where it was meant to. And then I said the thing I hadn't allowed myself to say until that moment. "I'm proud of you." Lena took a plea deal, not because she was remorseful, but because the evidence was undeniable. She avoided prison, but lost her license, her reputation, and access to anything she once controlled. The court mandated counseling and a permanent record that could never be sealed. She tried to write me once. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, out of boundaries. People still ask me if it felt good to win. It didn't. Winning implies competition. This was survival. What I gained wasn't money, it was clarity. I learned that love without respect becomes possession, that silence can be as violent as shouting, and that truth, real truth, doesn't need volume. It waits. I kept the house for 1 year, not to live in, to heal in. I opened windows Mom had never been allowed to open. I invited neighbors she'd missed. I let the house breathe again. Then I sold it, and with part of the money, I did something Lena never expected. I funded a legal aid program for seniors facing coercive control, in Mom's name, not mine. On the anniversary of her death, I uploaded a video to my YouTube channel. I told the story, not for revenge, but because in the comments, those same comments I was reading when this all started, I saw the pattern. People doubting themselves, questioning their instincts, thinking love meant endurance. It doesn't. Love means choice. The smile Lena saw that night in the hospital wasn't about inheritance. It was the moment I realized something she never understood. You can take money, you can take property, you can even take time, but you can't erase the truth if someone leaves it behind. My mother did. And in the end, that was the only thing worth inheriting.